So before our Memorial Day weekend retreat, Venerable Children gave a talk about the school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. And so that was very much on my mind throughout the whole retreat. And especially because every time there's a school shooting in this country, I think about one of the students that I taught 15 years ago when I was a high school teacher in Singapore. So today I wanted to just share the story of this student and my whole experience working with him. And yeah, offer some reflections on what it takes to stop a school shooting. So let's call this student Ashraf. I met Ashraf when he was 14. I was the form teacher of a class of maybe about 40 students. I guess here you call them the homeroom teacher. And so Ashraf was a student counselor. So this is a position appointed by the school's discipline committee. They pick students who have good grades and who have good behavior. And they are kind of selected as role models to come and help others follow guidelines of the school. And one of their duties is to help maintain order in the classroom when the teacher is not there. So one day, the class chairperson, which is a different kind of student leader position, that one is elected by the class. So he's kind of more popular and speaks for the fellow classmates. The class chairperson came to see me, and he said, you know, the other day, in between lessons, the boys were monkeying around as usual, and Ashraf got really irritated. He was trying to read a book and, was getting distracted. So he told the boys to please settle down, and they did not. And he got so upset that he walked up to the whiteboard and started banging his head on the whiteboard. And so all the boys were like, okay. And he said then that happened again soon after, where again, they're just playing around in between lessons. And Ashraf got so upset that he slammed the table to the ground. So the class chairperson said, now everyone in class is really afraid of him. Nobody really wants to talk to him. He just wanted to let me know. So clearly, this boy had some anger management issues. So as the form teacher, I reached out to him just to get to know him better, find out what was going on. And he's very bright. He was doing very well at school, student leader. But I sensed there was some kind of conflict in the family. The parents were fighting a lot. He didn't want to talk so much about that. And he just felt very, very troubled and lonely. So I just reached out try to be a safe adult friend. And as our relationship developed over time, he expressed suicide ideation to me twice. So immediately I got the school counselor involved because I'm not trained as a psychologist or a counselor at all. And the school counselor was one counselor to 1,200 children, many of whom had very complex family issues. And we had like a different counselor every year, but this was the one who stuck it out, and she was really good. So he started to see her, and I think it was helping, because he was starting to learn how to regulate his emotions. And I could see too that every year as he progressed in the school, his form teacher would really look out for this child, because he's very bright, very articulate, but also very troubled. And I could see they really reached out and took time to counsel him and speak to him. And I also learned that he's very gifted as an artist. He would draw these robots, very, very beautiful robots, and say, I wish I were a robot. I don't want to have these feelings. And also, he spent a lot of time playing violent video games, so first-person shooter games. And I asked him why he did that. And he said, I feel like such a loser in school, but when I play these games, I get immediate results. I'm on the high-ranking shooters list. He checks that list every day. I think you play with other people real time, and then you get to see immediately where your ranking is from shooting people in the game. You can get to the next level within the same day. He's like, that gives him a sense of achievement. He's not seeing that at school. And his best friend was very extroverted, so he had this one best friend who he felt a really strong connection with, but the friend had a huge circle of other friends, so he was always very angry and jealous. So we spent a lot of time talking about how to work with that jealousy, how to recognize his own good qualities. I think me and all the other teachers were just saying, you have so many talents, so many gifts, That's something to rejoice in. But at the very last staff meeting I attended, before I was posted off to do policy work, the principal told us at the meeting that close to graduation, Ashraf had sent an email to his form teacher that year, listing all the people he planned to kill in the school, including her. And it was really hard. That teacher had postpartum depression and was coming back into the school. And so we were all like, wow, But she, of course, was very alarmed and immediately alerted the school about this. And the school knew this was a cry for help. Yeah, he had listed all the people he wants to kill before graduation, including the teacher. And they alerted the Ministry of Education, who then got a professional psychiatrist involved. So that's as much as I knew about what happened, and then I left the school and I was posted elsewhere. So fast forward 1-2 years, I go to the theater as usual to watch a performance, and who do I run into there but Ashraf? And he's there in a different school uniform, he's there with other students, other classmates, and he's chatting happily with them. They were on a school trip to see a show together, and he looks really happy. It's like the first time I'm seeing him with a group of peers chatting and just feeling really at ease. So of course, we're very happy to see each other. And I say, let's catch up. I want to find out what's happened for you in the last few years. So we went out for a drink after the show. And he said that seeing the psychiatrist really helped. They diagnosed him with depression, and the psychiatrist prescribed medication that was really helping him. In the new school was much more academically focused, so he found new friends who had the same interests. And also he attended a youth camp where he met a counselor who he really connected with, and this counselor really stayed with him through all the ups and downs of adolescent life. I was like, wow, this woman counselor really saved his life, I would say. So he was in really good spirits, and I was just so happy to see how he had grown over those 2 years. And then a few more years passed, and I moved here, I ordained, and one day Ashraf writes to our office. He said, I think I have a high school teacher who became a nun. She's moved to your monastery. How do I get in touch with her? So Venerable Samten forwards the email to me. We correspond for a bit. And then 1 year when Venerable Children and I went back to Singapore, he actually came to Pure Land Marketing to connect. And I was surprised because he's not Buddhist and from a very different religion. And, it's quite a religious space, but he was totally at ease coming. And so now he was in Polytechnic, which is kind of like community college here. He was studying engineering. He had moved out and gotten a job to support himself. And he said he had to get a restraining order against his own father. So that was the first time I started to hear him talk about the violence that was actually happening in his house. But now he was old enough to take his life into his own hands and find safety. And he was, again, very positive, making, saving up money, hoping to travel and see the world. So when I think about this young man, I get what the gun lobby in this country is saying, like school violence happens because of a myriad of causes and conditions, right? There is violence in the home. The school environment is chaotic. There are limited mental health resources. The school counselor is seeing hundreds of children who have difficulties. Also, there's bullying, social isolation in schools. There are violent video games. But what made the difference? Why was he not able to execute his plan? This is a brilliant young mind, right? I'm sure he thought it through very carefully. Because he couldn't buy a gun. Whether legally or illegally off the market, there was no way he could have stolen a gun from someone because they're just not available in Singapore, period. And I get the argument that yes, if someone wants to execute their plan, they'll find a way. What really shocked Singaporeans to the core last year was a young person brought an axe to school and committed murder of another student. And he had very severe mental health difficulties. So, people will find a way. But really, what struck me about that case too was, he had killed someone with an axe and he turned himself in. He told all the other students, please call the police now. So it's a cry for help. When I see stories about these young shooters, these are not evil monsters. They're exactly like the student I know. These are children calling for help, and they have not received it. And during this retreat, Venerable Children told us to, anthropomorphize our self-centered thought, right? And some years ago, we actually did that in a discussion group, that we had art supplies and everyone drew their self-centered thought. And that year, I drew a thin young man holding 2 pistols with silencers. That's what my self-centered thought looks like. It's very intelligent. It has a good plan. It's very efficient. It's so quick, it'll get you before you know it. Cruel, no access to emotions. And, it was quite scary to just draw that and be like, whoa, okay. And she encouraged us this retreat, right? Sit with your skeletons, sit with your monsters. So I did. I sat with this young, thin person with the 2 pistols, and I just asked, what are you needing? What's going on? And he said, I've been through so much pain. I want you to suffer so you also understand what I've been through. I don't know, that was the kind of answer that came up for me internally. Like, it's just a deep wish for understanding. Yeah, like, I've been through such pain for so long, I will make you suffer so I'm not the only one. I want you to know what I have been through. That is the deep cry at heart. And so to see the wrong view there, the idea that if I make you suffer, you will empathize with me, I mean, it doesn't work, yeah? And that's what happens when our minds are afflicted. And yeah, that's the tragedy that happens for both the person engaged in the shooting and everybody else who suffers as a result. One of the articles I read in the New York Times, they interviewed many parents to ask what their response was to, this growing number of school shootings. What are you telling your children? And there was one parent who said, the number one, I think she's an educator too. Yeah. She said, the number one antidote to school violence is creating community. So kids need to feel loved and valued. Our children are telling us that the school is failing them. They're very angry, and that's the message they're trying to send. Yeah, they don't know how to express that. So that's the one that really kind of hit home for me. But that is not to say, don't bother with the guns. Yeah, the problem is the school or whatever. It is very puzzling to me why the public discourse in this country is that way right now. It's like, yes, we all know, especially as Buddhists, right? Phenomena arise based on complex causes and conditions. Yeah. So shouldn't the logical response be to let's now deal with the problem from many different angles? Right? If so many different parties and agencies have responsibility or can do something to help, why don't we come together and contribute something to help? Right? I'm amazed by the kind of nihilism in the public discourse that's like, oh yeah, it's not guns alone, it's that too, so we're not gonna do anything. You go fix it. You mental health people go deal with it. And the mental health folks are like, hey, we don't have funding or resources. You know what? It's the video games, and everyone's just like pointing the finger at someone else. I'm like, what? This just makes no sense. It's very sad. It speaks to like a serious lack of moral clarity and courage in our public institutions. Yeah. So, okay, what can we do as individuals? I think we always have to come back to that question. And for me right now, I think such a big piece of it, even if we can't see social change happen immediately, is to come back to the young people we're connected to. I mean, that's where I am right now, like to see if we listen with our hearts to the people we're connected to, especially the younger generation, if we can be a safe adult for even one person, it makes a world of difference. I know it made a difference to this student, all the adults who took that time to listen from the heart. It feels like something really small, right? But it's actually quite rare, I think, when I've observed. As adults, we always approach young people like, I'm older, so I kind of have an agenda, or I have some advice for you, versus really trying to hear, what's your experience in the world? You grew up in a world that's actually vastly different from the one I grew up in. What's going on for you? I get that you're angry at the older generation because the world doesn't look like it's going very well, but let's figure out how we can listen to each other and find some way forward. So yeah, we have Young Adult Week coming up here. So I think that's a really wonderful opportunity for all of us to open our hearts and welcome the young people coming into our doors without any agenda, except simply to love and accept them, to help them feel loved and valued, and to find hope together in this world. It is ridiculous to give up hope and to just throw up our arms and say like, someone else is gonna fix this issue. Yeah. Even if we don't see change happen right now or in the next election, I don't think people can give up on this. It's like gonna take lifetimes of work. But yeah, this is the nation that invented all kinds of fancy pants things. I think we can save young lives in schools. I don't think it's impossible.